session is the board's real role in fundraising. Who has an answer for what that is?
Part of the definition
Part of the definition of fundraising?
of a board member.
Okay, part of the definition of a board member is someone who does fundraising, okay? Yes,
More is the cultivator and the connection between relationships that they have, because as a board member, when you're coming in, you're also coming in with your network.
excellent. A cultivator and a connector, so somebody who's coming in with access to their network. That's good. Anybody else? All right, what about the definition of fundraising? Tell me what fundraising is. You didn't think you were gonna be in class, did you? Right after lunch, we're tired, full of food. All right, in general, the commonly accepted definition of fundraising is something like securing the funding necessary outside of any fees for service to ensure the operation of your organization. Seems pretty simple. This is the definition that I like. There's a gentleman named Ken Burnett, and he is a fundraiser in the UK. A lot of you, I was talking to you about my recent trip to the UK. It's one of my favorite places. His definition says, fundraising is the inspiration business. No matter how much we try to elevate it or complicate it, at its heart, it is telling stories. And I always tell the boards that I work with, if you can tell the story of your organization, and you can tell the story of how you are helping the people that you serve, you can raise money. All right, so board responsibilities. This comes from Board Source's 10 basic responsibilities. It's a bit smushed into 7, but there are 10. The ones that are really important to what we're talking about today are 4, 5, and 6. So it is the board's job to ensure adequate resources for the organization. The resources that they're trying to ensure are not simply financial. So they also involve people and things. Do you have the right people, whether that's staff, volunteers, board members, to accomplish your mission? Do those people have the right tools? So do they have the right stuff? That could be space. It could be your CRM. How many of you have a donor database? How many of you do not? Okay. So a donor database, especially in a small organization, and I didn't check to see what size your organizations are, but I'm going to assume that they're small to medium. The donor database is like your institutional memory. It is where you keep not only information about people who have given to you, but it also should be a constituent database. So it's people that you might be cultivating, who might be interested in your mission. It might be people that you serve. It might be community members, related nonprofits, government organizations, and elected officials. So that is going to be your institutional memory. Your board's going to change over, your staff's going to change over, your volunteers are going to change. You have to make sure that no matter who is there, no matter who is sitting in your seat, they can go to one of your supporters and say, hey, I know you've done this in the past. The worst thing that you can do is have that changeover and then there's nothing there for the new person to come in and look at. So a CRM or a donor database is incredibly important. Does anybody have one they really, really like? They are challenging, they are. And sometimes they are really expensive, cumbersome, but who has one they really like? Yes?
I mean, for what you get, Donor Perfect, I'm happy with that.
Donor Perfect is pretty good, yeah. Anybody else? What about some of the smaller guys? Do you have any that you use that are really for small organizations? Does anybody use Little Green Light?
My friend I do. We don't use that, but I have other
Yeah.
nonprofits that do, and they really have to speak of it highly.
You know what? For a very inexpensive CRM, it's pretty robust. I was trained on Blackbaud. Blackbaud, which is what now? Razor's Edge, thank you. I went to Charleston and I did 10 days of training, and it's very expensive and cumbersome, but they have Donor Perfect now. So for, a really large organization, it's great. It's also really expensive. So there are a lot of different ones that can serve your purposes. What you want is something that's not only going to keep a record of everybody's gift, but let you store some information about that person. So say it wants to be something that you're able to say, this person is connected to this person, that's that person's daughter, or they work here, or they work here and this place does matching gifts. So as much information as you possibly can about the people that you are partnering with. How many of you have service fees or something similar?
Service teams.
Nobody.
Service fees.
Service fees. So say you're okay, this is not service fees, but it's a similar idea. Say you are a nonprofit theater and you charge for your programs. Does anybody charge for anything? Just one, okay. Two. So a lot of places like that do, and that's a little bit of your budget. But most of your budget, I'm going to assume, is based on fundraising, correct? Okay. Responsibilities. How many of you, prior to coming to today's workshops, were aware of your responsibilities as a board member? Okay. How many of you have a board job description? Only a couple, okay. Those of you who have board job descriptions, does it outline responsibilities for fundraising in there?
Yes.
Yes, maybe. Okay. That's how you're gonna get your board involved in fundraising. That's one of the ways. That's kind of the basic. So if you have someone that you're bringing in to be a board member, and you're gonna be telling them what their responsibilities are. You're gonna say, hey, we meet every Tuesday night, we meet once a month, this is a mission of our organization, and this is what we expect you to do. You need to tell them what you expect them to do, and it needs to involve fundraising, because if you throw it onto them later and say, hey, well, you're not fundraising for us, is that in the job description that you gave them to begin with? It needs to be. There are several things that you want to have your board members do in terms of fundraising. One of them is giving your own gift. So one of the ways that I like to put that into the board job description is you have given a leadership gift that is commensurate with your personal needs. So we're not giving them a number. They don't have to give X every year. They don't have to bring in X every year. But they have to give a gift that says, this organization means something to me. Because if you're gonna have somebody going out to ask people for money, and that person says to them, well, what do you give? Because they're going to. Especially if it's somebody you know really well, they're going to. You have to be able to feel comfortable in terms of telling them that you give to the organization because it means something to you. That does not mean you all have to be wealthy people who are giving a lot to the organization every year, but it has to be a gift that's meaningful to you. A stretch gift. How many of you have said or heard from your board these things? I'll do anything but ask for money. That's not what I signed up for. And that goes back to the job description. That's the staff's job. We hired a staff person, we hired a development person, we finally have a development person. Now we don't have to do anything. I give my time, that's the same thing. Galas, grants, and golf, baby. How many of you have said or thought, I'll do anything but ask for money? Okay, if you're all comfortable with that, that's great. But I certainly have worked with a lot of boards who that whole idea of that terrifies them. The whole idea, the word fundraising terrifies them. And I have to tell you, all you have to do is reframe it. Because if you can teach that board to talk succinctly about your mission, if you can teach the board how to tell your story and what the gift is going to do, they can raise money. They can. And especially if you have a staff person, you send that board member out to tell the story, you have the staff person with them to actually make an ask, that's the dream team. Any of you can tell the story of your organization. So let me pick anyone. So tell me what your organization does. Tell me your story.
So we're the Chester County Food Bank, and we are looking to reduce food insecurity for those who live in Chester County of all age demographics.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Very succinct. Anybody else? What's the story of your organization? One sentence. Rick.
Born and raised special camp, we've been serving the needs of special needs individuals for 44 years, ages 8 through adults.
Okay. One other person. Yes.
Train service dogs for physically disabled people.
Okay, excellent. All right. So, that is the ensure adequate resources piece. In terms of that, you also want to make sure you're doing number 4. So you are, as a nonprofit organization, you are ensuring the public trust. They are giving you funding, and you have to make sure that you are managing those resources wisely, that you are stewarding the public gifts correctly. The other is number 6, enhance the nonprofit's public standing. Board members are ambassadors. You are out there talking up your organization. So if you are out and you meet somebody and they say, hey, what does your organization do? Tell me about that.
We provide academic support to undergraduate high school students, several high schools in Chester County.
Excellent, okay. So you should be able to, if somebody comes up to you and you have no warning, say what you do, and if you can, say why you're involved. Why does it mean something to you? What got you involved? Think about that, and think about why you're involved in your organization, because